All right, we continue bringing you voices around Arizona tied to Vin Scully, and I thought of not just Mark Rita, not just Tom Brenneman, but Derrick Hall. Because Derrick, before his time with the Diamondbacks, even with his time with the Diamondbacks, I'm sure he ran into Vin Scully an awful lot. But for the sake of this conversation, your first time running into Vin Scully was, do you remember?
Yeah, first time I ran into Vin was as an intern in Vero Beach, Florida in 1992. And then I became a full-time employee of the Dodgers in 94. And at some point shortly after that, when I was promoted to senior VP of communications, Vin Scully became one of my employees. And I used to laugh and say, he's probably the only employee who could fire me if he wanted to. But Brad, I grew up. I learned baseball through Vin. I love baseball because of Vin. Where so many people can say that. And growing up in Southern California, half my family they were Angels fans, and my father and I were Dodgers fans. And I remember explicitly and vividly the transistor in the backyard, listening to Vin on weekends. And he's the reason I wanted to go to games, and he's the reason I wanted to have a career in baseball.
Go into depth on how much did you learn about baseball from Vin Scully, Derrick?
I learned everything from either my father or Vin Scully, but to listen to him call a game, and back then radio was so powerful, as you know,
Yep.
and so important. But then once we began to work together, I learned a lot from Vin from a front office standpoint and a relationship standpoint, and how to treat people and how to represent the team on the road. I mean, I really learned how to be a front office executive through Vin. He was extremely generous with his time and his information and his advice, but he did it in such a humble way. And even like life lessons. I remember one time I'm in Vero Beach, Florida for spring training, and Vin was coming out to do a weekend game. We had so many games that were televised. So he's coming out to Vero Beach. And in order to get there, you would have to fly to Orlando. And we had retirees, men and women, that would drive up and pick you up at the airport and drive you back. It would take an hour and a half to 2 hours. And Vin and I had golf planned that afternoon. So I was going to pick him up at Dodger Town. We were going to go have lunch and play golf. And so he's in the front seat with me, and I pick him up, and I've got my hand over the steering wheel, and I'm driving like some of us do casually and above the 12 position. And
Yep.
I said, Vin, how was I said, how was the drive? And he says, oh, it was okay. And I said, just okay? He said, yeah, just okay. And I said, oh. I said, something wrong with the driver? He says, well, the driver really didn't understand 10 and 2. And I quickly went, boom. That's all he had to say. But he was just, he had a way of expressing how he felt and teaching you. But so much fun and so classy in everything he did. Speaking of golf, I mean, he would take me. I was so fortunate. He would take me to Bel Air, where he was a member, and he would go out and play golf, and he would wear long with fair skin, wear long sweaters and two gloves and a big straw hat to keep himself covered, and just had this little left-handed slice. And he loved the game so much, and he'd stand over like a 2-foot putt and miss it, and he'd say, "Oh, dirty name." And I'd say, "Come on, Ben, just say it one time." He'd go, "No, no, dirty name." That was him. And you just felt so happy and lucky to be around this man.
How much broadcasting did you learn from Vin Scully?
I learned a lot, and I think most do. I know you probably did too. But what you learn from Vin is specifically about play-by-play, and I think he's the best play-by-play announcer of all time, and
Right.
not just for the Dodgers, not just for baseball, but all sports. He was great at football. He was great at golf. Everything he did, he did better than anyone. But Vin would not be afraid to be quiet. And I think so many broadcasters need to learn that, or needed to learn it from him. He had the ability of calling the game and then let the crowd tell the rest of the story. After a home run, he just went silent. And I think there's too many broadcasters or play-by-play announcers, which is natural, who feel uncomfortable being quiet or silent. And he didn't. And of course, we always hear about the storytelling, and they were great stories. And he would tell them over and over and over during a series, because he figured you're not going to hear or listen to every single bit of his broadcast. But I guarantee you people did. And that was the other beauty. When you learn, if you have someone as powerful and talented as Vin, who really was a major part of the brand. You think about the Dodgers for all those years, and the brand was Dodger Stadium, the Dodger dog, Tommy Lasorda, the O'Malley's, the uniform, and Vin Scully. And Vin, I think people would watch a broadcast or a telecast or listen to him on radio the entire time back before he did TV, or when it was a simulcast, even if it was a 10-0 game where most people tune out, his power was you still wanted to watch him or listen to him, and you still wanted to hear the same stories that he may have prepared for one of the opposing players. And he used to say to me, "Oh, I need to go get ready. I have to make my prepared ad libs." And that's what he did, and he just had these powerful notes, and he never used them because as he wrote them down, he remembered anyways. And the greatest storyteller of all time.
How much did he impact you, and did you learn from him on life?
A ton, so I think back, and Brad, I was so fortunate. I cherish the memories and the moments that I had with him where on the road, here I was, this young kid, 30 to 35, and to be asked constantly to go to dinner when we would land in the city with Vin Scully, our late traveling secretary at the time, Billy DeLury, who they were both from Brooklyn, and then Joey Amalfitano, the third base coach. And so I would sit there, I get chills thinking about it again. I would sit there and just like a sponge take everything in. But then I would watch him. The way he treated people was really the takeaway, Brad. He knew everybody's name. If people brought in constantly traffic flow into his broadcast booth at home and on the road, and he was always gracious, and he always took time for everyone. I want you to meet my mother. I want you to meet, my sister. And he would get up like he knew that individual and a hug and take photos and sign autographs. He was the greatest and never complained about it. But just the general treatment of people, his humility, as great as he was, again, greatest of all time. He didn't know how great he was, and that's a great attribute for anyone.
In 1999, I was asked to do about 70 Diamondback play-by-play games, and I had Vin on for my years in Southern California, and I mustered up enough courage just to walk over to him at a game and say, "I'm going to do this." He said, "Just go be yourself. You know the game. Just go be
That's
yourself."
it.
And he said,
That's it.
You're not asking." I said, "Is there anything you'd want to advise me to do?" And just go be you. And I'll never forget that, Derrick, because you could have somebody that, and for you and I are right along the same lines. We were in an era of Bob Miller doing hockey, Don Drysdale doing the Angels, Vin Scully doing that, and Chick Hearn. And you're probably in the same boat as me. Blessed that all four of those guys were able to pour into me as a broadcaster. You were a broadcaster at one point in time, and so the magnitude of it last night when it was announced, it was just something I felt like guys like you and I would just look at and tilt our head a little differently, because I think people here in Arizona, and no offense, just may not know how big a deal this is.
Yeah, and what an icon for the entire sport. And I'm glad to see he's getting the attention and the timing, and a global moment of silence is coming, which is all great. But I don't think he would want anybody moaning or mourning for him. I think he would want a celebration of baseball. So that's the beauty. And he had 94 great years.
Yep.
And you're right. That would be the advice. I'm glad he gave you that advice, because I heard him give it to others too. And for him, Brad, I went to him once for advice on how to handle a situation where one of our broadcasters at the Dodgers at the time was going to need time off because of health reasons, a significant amount of time. And so I went to Vin and I said, I need to ask one of the other broadcasters to step up and fill in, but I'm not prepared to pay them anymore. And he said, you don't need to. And I said, really? And he said, tenors love to sing. And I'll never forget that.
Wow.
Tenors love to sing. And I went to that broadcaster and said, do you mind filling in for your current pay? And he said, oh, I don't mind at all. I love it. I get to do more. And he was right. Tenors love to sing. And there was no better tenor than the great Vin Scully.
That is awesome. Good stuff. Yeah. I appreciate your time and insights, Derrick. Thanks.
As always, Brad. Thank you.